to ask who regulates you? Who is your regulator? Could you? Very good question. Obviously, like the blockchain industry is really very at its infancy stage, right? So currently, what we've incorporated is a Seychelles-based entity, and now there are regulated Seychelles-based, but now there are jurisdictions which are taking lead in regulating. So, for example, Malta or Gibraltar are coming out with their own regulator programs where they're inviting companies to move into under those as a regulator of blockchain-based companies. If you study right now, there is no regulation all around blockchain. But we as a company, what we've done is we've adopted Deloitte as auditors and CBRE as valuators to continue the scrutiny on it. But then the regulation will really come in once these leading jurisdictions accept companies. So for in our case, for example, we are under discussion with ADGM, Abu Dhabi General Markets, to incorporate there also as to add this value add and add this sort of comfort zone as a regulated entry. But as of now, as a whole, all the blockchain companies that exist around the world, they're self-regulated. And when you say that, that's the idea of having a hyper ledger or having a ledger because it's all public domain. So you know the transaction, who's selling, who's buying, is a public domain. But since we as a company are doing real estate transactions, which are real world, not only virtual, we need that extra level of scrutiny, which will really come in, like I said, once we finalize the jurisdiction. Could be Malta, Gibraltar, or AGM as an example.
Do we have any other questions?
My name is Imran. The REIT option that you mentioned, my question, I have two questions. One is, why would anyone go with your particular option, which is connected to blockchain? And secondly, what are the risks associated with entering this?
So I'll repeat the question. One question is you said that why would anybody go with this versus a traditional REIT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer that, the key thing is that in traditional REITs, when you buy into a REIT, you are very jurisdiction dependent. Meaning, if you want to buy into the US REIT, you need to have a certain set of requirements fulfilled for the US REIT. But then that REIT will only invest in US assets. So it's a very, let's say, single view investment. Where in our case, what we're doing is we're offering a diversified basket. So that's the unique element from an investor's perspective. Coming back to again, which is a very important question, what are the risks? Subject to normal all other investments, there's various risks which you have to look at. One are market risks. Market risk meaning that whatever asset we buy, is subject to price drops, subject to price increases. So that's a market risk. Again, that's on the asset. Then itself on the token itself. The token valuation is also subject to market risk, right? Let's say the token is trading at $1, lists at $1, and then it goes down to 90 cents or goes down to 80 cents. So you're again taking that risk of market risk. Above that, and to understand, but we as a acting fund manager in this case, the REIT manager, our job is to make sure that we mitigate the risks, whatever risks which are identified. Hence, like example, in a market risk of a real estate, we will look at only buying assets which are on a long lease and have a stable cash flow. That's how we mitigate that risk that, if rents drop for 1 year, but on a 10-year view, they will not drop, and they will stabilize. Similarly, on an exchange perspective, price risk exists for the token price. Hence, whenever we do future acquisitions of assets, we will not allow, let's say if the volume is $1 million a day, we will not do an acquisition which will result in dumping of tokens. We will every asset that we are acquiring, we will have a holding clause from the asset contributor, which will allow him to, gradually sell his tokens. So let's say if you give me an asset of $20 million and our volume on a daily is $1 million, we will tell you, okay, you can only sell 100,000 a day, or a certain value pertaining to the trade at the exchange, or the prevailing volumes achieved. And so we control again, this market risk of dumping of the tokens.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Kashif. I have a couple of questions. Number one is, where exactly?
But the future is digital wallets. Like you have now seen, credit cards are widely used around the world. Everybody has a credit card now. 10 years ago, credit cards were not this widely accepted. So what we're seeing is the new trend, and is that on the advent of blockchain, there will be a lot of cryptocurrencies which will be used as a as a notional accepted means of exchange. M credit is one example. The UAE government has said they will come up with a current cryptocurrency for UAE, which will be used by the government as in a means of exchange. So coming back to answer that, we're leveraging of blockchain framework to really pay out dividends on an instant basis. Today we're saying we're going to pay you monthly. Eventually, when the fund is larger, we can even pay you weekly. And then again, so it's not only one, it's dividend plus the others, as you said, it's allowed to buy, sell these tokens to anywhere around the world. Hence, you can, don't have to really go through a process of opening an account, and once you have done it for any other cryptocurrencies, we fall within the same framework. So we have an Ethereum-based network which we've leveraged on. So if you have an Ethereum-based wallet, you can store our token on that same wallet. And so by being on blockchain, the other benefit is that you will receive these tokens in that same wallet. You can store them in a hardware wallet wherever you have that kept. And that allows you to really own a share or an income stream which is from real estate, but because of blockchain, it's now on a virtual wallet for you, which makes it very easy for you to manage, and that's where we're leveraging that. To answer your second question, how are you different from other mutual funds and other stuff? It depends what you're comparing against. Every mutual fund or every fund has a focus. Some invest in real estate, some invest in bonds, some invest in different things. From our perspective, what we're doing is we're doing what a traditional REIT does, but leveraging of the technologies which are existing out there. So if you compare us with a REIT, really we're really different on two perspectives, like you said, one global plus the element of application of technology, which is what the key distinguishing factor is. I think
it comes to the same question raised. It's not a traditional real estate sort of, and it's not registered as a fund manager also. So how do you propose that this will be the persons who are investing will be investing in the coins as such or tokens as such only, and we should not have any registered entity as such within the country. Will be those tokens taken up as an investment, and which from your side you will be making it as an investment into the real estate, as you mentioned. But what about the security to the investor? What exactly does he have the fallback position? Is it a registered company which has got shares, or is he investing into any liability to that aspect?
So I'll explain to you the general structuring of everything. One is when you subscribe by going online, opening an account. So you sign off on a smart contract, which basically sets the rules of your investment. So you really go and say, okay, I agree. And that agreement, stipulates your rights and your liabilities and all, related to your token ownership. But in the back end, what's really happening is an SPV corporate structure. So the Seychelles entity is buying the asset through an SPV for wherever the asset may be. So let's say if it's a London asset, the SPV company will buy the London asset, it will be owned by the Seychelles, which is really a trust. So the beneficial owner of that trust are the token holders. So for example, in your, let's say there's 100 million tokens issued today, and those 100 million people own through a trust structure all the real estate assets. So in the event, let's say, and it's a good question, because let's say, for example, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, for whatever reason, crypto becomes banned, and is not adopted. You still have a share in that SPV, which owns the real estate effectively, which still has income coming through. However, it would be a step back where we're saying, okay, now you're going to still get dividends in the traditional model of dollar income from the underlying assets, but it's not be on a blockchain basis. So to answer your question, every token holder has the full entitlement of a share, but it's structured through the blockchain framework. So you still own a share in that asset or future underlying assets as and when they are acquired.
So then the follow-up question comes in, why is it not registered with the BIFC or it's part of the...
So like I said, as of now, what we started with is a Seychelles-based entity, but now, like the question earlier was that is there a regulator there? So right now the regulator is this issues authority. But let's say 2 years down, we foresee that ADGM, or even 2 months down, as an example, ADGM says now we are ready to regulate a blockchain company. We will then look at moving the jurisdiction outside to that entity. And that's why I mentioned Malta, Gibraltar, because these are a few offshore structures or jurisdictions which are adopting blockchain framework companies and saying, okay, we are ready to handle them. In the current state, because blockchain itself is only 1 year old as a framework in global standards, there's not many jurisdictions which are giving governance on this. So, like in our discussion, we've had a verbal discussion with ADGM, and they are saying, yes, now we are ready to handle. Even the FCC is also accepting, and issuing cryptocurrency licenses. So, from a legal jurisdiction perspective, we have facilitated ourselves with Seychelles as a start-off point. Because when we started 6 months back, that was the best vehicle available. But you might see within 6 months to a year, when certain jurisdiction has matured enough, where now you have the US and the UK, financial authorities also accepting them, then we will look at moving to a new regulated market too, as a jurisdiction base. But the business model will continue to remain the same. So from an investor perspective, this will be really at the back end. You will just see that now we've improved the corporate structure, but while the investments and the model and the income remains the same.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Zishan. My questions relate to adding on to the risks element. The first part of the question is, how would you, it's uncontrollable, the currencies, since you will be investing in say US or Euro, so the currencies and the volatile market that is currently, the currencies will play, I think, a big element in that. And another second question is, in terms of, let's say you have an investment in one of the hotels or something, and they run into losses and they file for bankruptcy. So how does that affect the investment?
So, again, I think you have two risks. One is currency. So typically, like in Dubai, the income is based off dollar. It's really pegged to the dollar. When let's say we go to the UK, and we foresee, now the good thing about the investment structure that we have is that we have stable, identified tenants already in the property. Hence, let's say we're buying a property worth 100 million, we know that it expects income of 6 to 8 million a year. So it's very easy for us to foresee the amount of currency we will receive on a yearly basis, so we can hedge against that as a currency risk hedge, right? That's one applicable model of really covering risk on currency. So let's say if the income is in sterling, we can just say, okay, we expect £6 million income in sterling, we just hedge that. But moving beyond that, what you said, the risk of bankruptcy and tenancy, again in these mature leases that are structured, there's always other additional clauses that you built in. For example, in Australia, let's say, or in the UK, you have a company which is signing a lease. If they go bankrupt, there's insurance which kicks in. So you have insurance to cover for their default, as an example. But again, this is all subject to us really how we define the lease, or how when we acquire the asset, how is it structured? In like non-mature markets, you don't have such tools available. Like to give you an example, we had a fire here a few years back in a building which was a hotel, and so there was loss of income. So if there was insurance placed in place already for loss of income due to fire, the owners would have received, but they didn't have it. So there was no loss of compensation for loss of income. So this is just an example as a tool that we would have to adopt and accept and really apply from experience in securing the investors and the shareholders who are investing for such scenarios, such as default or fire or force majeure. And really the only coverage that is through insurance is one example of that. But again, let's say we are buying an asset, one of the part of the due diligence is the quality of the tenant. You don't just buy any building and you say, okay, it has 60 apartments and 54 4 people of those are like, employed by one company, and, tomorrow that company goes bust, so you don't have cash flow. So you have to check the quality of the tenant, check the quality of who's backing their lease, and then based on that, which is falls part of the due diligence process. That's how you cover that risk.
My name is Shabi Kurema. Sorry, my thought is not properly. My question relating to risk. We know that technology makes us very easiest life. But from risk point of view, for example, someone is having a member, definitely he has the username and the password. Suddenly he lost the password. This is the risk. Second one, by mistake, if you transfer the money in a wrong account, then there is another risk. So no doubt that technologies make very much easy, but there is a risk. Because in a traditional currency, there is some central bank or the government is the backbone. So in this way, how a normal person, if he just open the computer and he left and suddenly another person accessed the PC and he transferred the money. So within a second, he become from millionaire to zillionaire, how we can say.
So it's like, to correlate in real life, let's say you have a wallet full of $10,000 and you drop it outside in the valet. It's a good chance you won't get it back. But if it's a public ledger, the idea is who picked up this wallet is now known. So oh, okay, it came from this account, it went to this account. And now it's in this account. So effectively what you have is you have a self-built audit trail. Saying, okay, you had 10,000, but it went to this account, from this account, it went to this account. And that's where you see that, if you follow the news in cryptocurrencies, that you hear these scams or you hear these thefts that somebody lost $50 million, but after 3 days they say, okay, we recovered them. Why? Because it's a public ledger. So actually, really what it's doing is that, again, applying on your example of wallet, now you have a wallet which has a tracker on it, and that tracker is with 15 people. So wherever the wallet goes, okay, he touched the wallet, then he touched the wallet. So really, it's a matter of adoption. What you see is that, you're not used to it. Like 10, 15 years ago, there was no credit cards widely accepted. Now when you go to the gas station, you pay fuel also by credit card. Before it was only cash. So this is just at its early stages of adoption, and eventually what you will see is that you will have this application coming where this will overtake normal currencies, because it's more safe, secure, it has data background behind it. And an example, in real world, coming to what you said about central bank. So central bank really widely use TT. Everybody is familiar with the word TT, it's direct transfer. What is it? It's just verification mechanism between banks for funds transfer. Now there's a new cryptocurrency called Ripple. What is Ripple? It's just same thing, but it's doing it using blockchain. What it does in exchange for the bank is that it allows the bank to instantly transfer money, meaning it's reduced the cost of $75 or what we pay in a TT down to zero. Plus, it's created a ledger network of verification of, okay, there was a bank in London which paid a bank in Dubai, hence, and it was done through Ripple, so it has a trace of how the money moved. So, what you are seeing now is a lot of banks like RAC Bank and other various banks have signed up on Ripple as a mechanism of transferring money. So within a few years you will see TT will become obsolete. And even the bank itself will become obsolete to a certain extent. Certain functions of a bank you will see are not required because it's in your wallet. You don't need to go to the bank. The money exists in a virtual domain. You want to pay somebody, you want to do a direct transfer. So this is just, like you said, it's just the early stage. That's why you have this fear. But there's better security mechanisms built around it, which are really being adopted. Like loss of password, there's another way to recover your password. Everybody's familiar with how to recover a password. Similarly, in hardware wallets, there's a way to recover your hardware wallet if you lose one.
So can we take one last question if there are any from the floor? Okay, last 2 questions.
We're here for the question answers later on as well.
That was very enlightening, by the way. I'm impressed. Well done on that one. 2 things actually. I couldn't relate the 90% guaranteed payout which then you translated into an 8%. Okay, so if you can explain that. And the other thing was, how are the incomes paid out? Are they paid out in tokens? And if so, where do I go to encash them into real money?
So I'll explain. Good question. So the 90% was coming from the general methodology of all REITs. So if you go to, let's say, the Karachi Stock Exchange mandate for REITs, they will say, okay, we require, or even the US, they say we require all registered REITs to pay 90% as a minimum of their income as dividend. So let's say in a public shareholding structure, REITs are a subset, which are a special class of companies, and they are mandated that you must give 90% of your income out as dividend. That's where the 90% comes, but that's a minimum. So even there are REITs which give 100% of their income. Like in our case, we will give 100% of the income. So that 90 slide was really talking about the traditional REITs and what's their sort of mandate from the exchange perspective for REITs which are registered. So in our case, what we're doing is whatever income which comes through, it will be distributed all. So it's 100% in our case. Hence, in the 8%, the way the 8% works is that on the first asset, what we've done is we've signed a long lease for first five years with a minimum base rent of 8%. And as the hotel operation operates and it builds up its occupancy, if it exceeds 8%, that upside will also be passed to the REIT. So it's basically we've hedged the downside to secure the investor at the minimum of the 8. But let's say on the year 3, the books close and it turns out to be 8.4, you end up with another 0.4 additional for that year. So after 5 years, it's all actual income. Because we created the new concept and we wanted everybody to have the comfort of a stable cash flow, we said let's use 8 as a base, which is, which we secured the first asset on. 1 point. The last question is how is it distributed? So it's distributed. So once you create an account and you contribute, you have access to your dashboard. You can go online, you can choose, okay, I want my money in dollars, I want my money in USDT. USDT is basically virtual dollar. So there's a currency which is pegged to the dollar, but is virtual. It exists already. So you can say, okay, I want my income in that, or you can say, I want my income in dollars itself. So if you choose dollars, then you have to give a bank account, and then you choose the frequency of your payout. So you say, I want it monthly, quarterly, yearly, because every time you take it on a dollar, you have to pay the bank transfer element. But if you take USDT, there's no transfer cost, it's negligible, hence you can take it on a monthly basis, and so it will come in your wallet. What will you do with USDT typically is a lot of people who get USDT, they have means and mechanisms of accounts of cashing those out. Because it's basically, again, back to the dollar. So it's not exposed to the cryptocurrency risk of price fluctuation. So you can choose which one you want. You want dollar or USDT. Both exist as an option.
My name is Masood Kayani from Masap Organizers. My question is that you said that these crypto tokens that that investors can buy, do they buy it on your total investments, or the investors can choose, let's say I want it in the Palm and I want it in Burj Khalifa and I don't want it in London or Singapore or something like that?
So yeah, as a basket, so what you buy is as you buy the position on the whole basket. That's the whole idea of having the REIT, which is giving you an average of income of cross assets, cross country. So it's not a specific choice that you say, okay, I only want to invest in the in the Burj Khalifa project or in the London project.
But in that case, how do you pay the example of your hotel that you will get this much extra benefits and all that? So then how would you distribute? Let's say you have 10 hotels or 20 hotels.
So each hotel which comes into the system will publish a schedule of benefits based on the token holdings. So like any loyalty program, let's say you have by Emaar or you have Emirates Airlines, they publish their redemption structure, right? So to give you an example, let's say you go to the Palm Hotel or you go to the London Hotel, if you have 10,000 tokens and you get a free night, for example, in Dubai, but maybe in the London Hotel you will get around 20,000 tokens, as an example. So each asset which is acquired will publish their own schedule of redemptions or benefits on the utility of the tokens, based on their real income model. I think it's very like you're in Emirates, you want to upgrade, you upgrade Dubai Jeddah versus Dubai London is different, similar model, except I think they want us to finish the question, so we have the next session with the Indus. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming in. If there's any other questions, you can find us around here. And my business card is also on the way out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for giving that very informative feedback to the questions from the audience. As we can say, Mr. Ali and Mr. Hostel will be around for any further questions over dinner. And we can welcome the next guest to the stage. Thank you again.